Have you ever felt like the world is against you? Like no matter what you do, you face rejection, criticism, or betrayal at every turn. It's as though everyone's eyes are on you, waiting for you to fall, while you're just trying to make sense of the struggle. But here's something powerful. Those who are chosen by God often face the hardest battles. Why? Because there's a divine purpose inside you that the world cannot comprehend. But let me tell you, this is not the end of your story. Your restoration is coming, and it's going to be greater than anything you've lost. What if I told you that the very rejection you're facing right now is a sign that God is at work in your life? That's right, the world's rejection is nothing more than a confirmation that God has chosen you for something far greater. This isn't just about getting back what you've lost. It's about God bringing you into a new season of abundance, peace, and opportunities that you never imagined. Get ready to see how God turns your pain into purpose, your struggles into strength, and your losses into blessings. For those feeling rejected, persecuted, or stuck in endless struggles, it can feel like life's weight is crushing you. But here's a little secret: those struggles, they're not random. They're not there to break you. They're signs that you are chosen by God. It's as if the universe is throwing obstacles your way, because there's something unique and powerful inside of you that needs refining. This isn't about suffering for suffering's sake. It's about preparing you for greatness. You might not see it yet, but those moments of hardship are shaping you into someone with a purpose that's beyond what you can imagine. And when you realize that, it changes everything. Imagine someone who constantly faces rejection, whether it's at work, in relationships, or within their community. They might feel like they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. However, what if that constant rejection was part of God's plan to mold them into someone stronger, someone more connected to their divine purpose? The Bible teaches us that struggles are not just tests. They're the groundwork for God's mighty work in our lives. So when you're feeling that weight, know that it's a mark of being chosen, not abandoned. It's the path to something greater, something divine. You might ask, but why does it feel so hard? And that's a valid question. Life's challenges can feel like an endless storm. But the truth is, God isn't leading you into battle without preparation. Every moment of pain, every tear shed, has a purpose. These moments build strength, resilience, and faith. God sees you. He's with you in the storm, even if you can't feel His presence. In the Bible, we see countless examples of people who faced trials because they were chosen by God. Joseph, for instance, was betrayed, thrown into a pit, and forgotten. Yet, through it all, God had His hand on Joseph's life, preparing him for a destiny far greater than he could have imagined. Just think about Job. He went through unimaginable loss, but his story didn't end in despair. In fact, his restoration was greater than his losses. So, if you're feeling persecuted, rejected, or misunderstood, remember that it's not a sign of your failure, but of God's greater purpose at work in you. The struggle isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of your transformation. In those moments, your angels are fighting alongside you, even if you can't see them. Don't give up when the pressure is. It's actually the moment God is getting ready to bring you into the next phase of your destiny. As you go through life, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that these hardships mean you're doing something wrong. But in reality, it's the opposite. God sees you as His vessel, someone He's chosen to carry His message into the world. The persecution you face, the struggles you endure, they're proof that you're walking a path that leads to greatness. And the greater the battle, the bigger the breakthrough. God is shaping you to be someone who carries His light into dark places. So, let those moments of rejection fuel your faith and push you closer to your purpose. It's also important to remember that you're never alone in this journey. The Bible speaks of angels who are sent to help and protect us. They're around you, cheering you on, guiding you, and whispering words of encouragement. You may not always feel it, but trust that they're there. The struggles you face are not a reflection of who you are, but a reflection of the greatness God has placed within you. Embrace it, because the world needs what you've got. And through it all, just keep praying. God's plan is always moving forward, even when it feels like things are standing still. Being chosen by God doesn't mean everything will fall into place easily. In fact, sometimes it means the exact opposite. Look at Joseph. His life is a perfect example of how being chosen by God doesn't protect you from hardship. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and falsely accused of crimes he didn't commit. Yet, through all the pain and injustice, God had a bigger plan for him. The path to his exaltation wasn't a smooth one. It was a winding road full of obstacles and setbacks. But each challenge Joseph faced was part of the divine preparation for the greatness that was coming. Joseph's story is a powerful reminder that being chosen by God doesn't shield you from betrayal or hardship. In fact, it often sets you on a path where you'll face the very things that seem impossible to overcome. The Bible tells us that God uses these moments to refine us, to develop our character and strength. And though Joseph faced betrayal and injustice, each step brought him closer to his destiny. The road was tough, but Joseph's faith never wavered. And because of that, God's plan unfolded in ways that Joseph could never have imagined. The hardships Joseph faced weren't just random acts of cruelty. They were part of God's greater purpose. Just like Joseph, when we're chosen by God, we sometimes face circumstances that seem unfair, even painful. But those moments aren't the end, they're a prelude to something much bigger. Sometimes the betrayals we experience, the injustices we endure, are the very things that prepare us for God's promotion. The Bible shows us that, despite Joseph's challenges, God was always with him, guiding him, even when it seemed like everything was falling apart. Take a moment and reflect on your own life. Are you facing betrayal or injustice? Do things seem to be going wrong no matter what you do? If so, know that you're not alone. Joseph's journey was filled with betrayal and setbacks, yet he trusted God through it all. Sometimes, God allows these hardships to shape us into the person we need to be for the mission He has prepared for us. You might not understand it now, but the struggles you face are shaping your future. They're making you stronger, more resilient, and more capable of fulfilling your purpose. Joseph's story teaches us that faith doesn't mean everything will go our way. It means trusting God even when things don't make sense. His path wasn't easy, but it was necessary. The betrayal he experienced wasn't the end of his story. It was just the beginning of his elevation. And when he was finally exalted, it wasn't just for his own benefit. He became a blessing to others, saving nations from famine and bringing his family back together. Your struggles may seem long, but know that they're part of your preparation for what's to come. As you journey through life's challenges, remember Joseph. His life wasn't easy, but it was purposeful. God never promised an easy road, but He did promise that He would never leave us or forsake us. Through every betrayal, every setback, God was working behind the scenes, preparing Joseph for his moment of victory. And He's doing the same for you. Your hardship isn't the end. It's part of your process, a necessary step in your journey toward exaltation. Just like Joseph, your trials are refining you, preparing you for something greater. And through it all, remember to pray, to lean on God for strength. His plan for your life is far greater than anything you can see right now. So even in the toughest moments, trust that He's working on your behalf, guiding you toward your purpose. The betrayal, the injustice, they're just stepping stones on the road to your divine destiny. When you face hatred and rejection, it's easy to think that it's about you. You might wonder, what did I do wrong? But here's the truth. It's not about who you are. It's about what God has placed inside of you. The opposition you face is a reflection of the greatness, the potential, and the divine calling God has placed within you. People don't always understand the purpose God has for your life. Sometimes, the jealousy, the hatred, and the rejection come because others can sense the light that you carry, even if they can't see it clearly. And that light is something they can't comprehend. Think about Jesus for a moment. He was rejected by the very people He came to save, not because of anything He did wrong, but because of what He represented God Himself. The Bible tells us that He faced opposition from those who couldn't understand the divine purpose He was fulfilling. It wasn't about Him personally. It was about the power of God's purpose shining through Him. The same is true for you. When you face rejection, it's not necessarily about you as an individual. It's about the message, the purpose, and the power of God that others can't fully grasp. That's why they oppose you. This is an important concept to grasp because it shifts the focus away from personal failure and into understanding that your struggles are rooted in the divine purpose inside of you. When people reject you, it's often because they feel threatened by what you carry, even if they can't articulate it. It's a spiritual battle more than anything else. Your purpose, your anointing, the gifts God has given you stir up resistance. But that resistance isn't a reflection of your worth, it's a sign of the enemy trying to stop you from fulfilling God's plan. Take a moment to think about a time you felt rejected or misunderstood. Maybe it was at work, in a relationship, or even within your own family. Instead of seeing it as a personal attack, shift your perspective. Recognize that it's not about you. It's about the opposition to the greatness God has placed in you. The more powerful the call, the more intense the resistance, and the more rejection you face, the more it's a sign that God is preparing you for something extraordinary. When you face hatred and rejection, it's easy to become discouraged. But don't forget that this is part of the process of being chosen by God. It's like gold being refined by fire. The heat brings out the impurities, but it also strengthens the gold. Similarly, your trials refine you, making you more resilient in the face of opposition. So, instead of shrinking back, stand firm in the knowledge that the rejection is a sign that you're on the right path. The enemy knows you carry something powerful, and he'll try to stop you at every turn. This idea isn't just theoretical, it's practical. The next time you face rejection, remind yourself that it's not about you. It's about the divine purpose that's stirring things up. When you're hated or persecuted, don't internalize it as a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of the enemy trying to prevent God's purpose from unfolding in your life. And in those moments, remember to pray, to lean on God's strength. He's using this opposition to refine you, to prepare you for a breakthrough that will surpass anything you've imagined. When you're in the midst of pain, it can feel like the world is crashing down around you. The losses, the heartache, the confusion, they can all seem so overwhelming. But here's a powerful truth. God sees every moment of your pain. He doesn't turn his back on you when you're struggling. In fact, he's working behind the scenes, orchestrating a greater plan for your life. Job's story is a perfect example of this. His life was turned upside down. He lost everything: his health, his wealth, his family. But God saw his pain, and he had a plan to restore everything he lost and more. Job's story didn't end in despair. It ended in restoration, a reminder that God's plan is always greater than our current circumstances. Job's journey wasn't easy, and neither will yours be. There will be times when it feels like everything is slipping through your fingers, and you might wonder if things will ever get better. But just as God restored Job's life, he promises to restore yours. The key here is timing. God's restoration doesn't always come when we expect it, but in his perfect timing, everything you lost will be returned to you, sometimes even in greater abundance than before. You may not see it now, but trust that God is preparing something bigger than what you could ever imagine. In the Bible, we're shown time and time again that God doesn't leave his people in their pain. He walks with us through the fire, and he has a plan for redemption. Just like Job, who went through unimaginable suffering, God will restore you. Your losses are not permanent. They are part of the process. And though you may not see it in the moment, each setback is actually God setting you up for a comeback. Trust that the pain you're experiencing is not the end of the story. It's just a chapter in a much larger narrative. When we're in pain, we often forget that God has a greater plan. We become so focused on the loss and the hurt that we lose sight of the bigger picture. But God doesn't just see your current suffering. He sees the future he's preparing for you. Just as he had a greater plan for Job, he has a greater plan for you. Your life might look chaotic right now, but remember that God is in control. His plan is always unfolding, and it's leading you to a place of restoration. Job's story is a testament to God's ability to restore. After everything he lost, God not only gave him back what was lost, but blessed him with even more. God's restoration is always abundant. It's not just about returning what was taken, it's about giving you more than you had before. And this is the promise for you as well. Whatever you've lost, God is preparing to restore it, and more. Trust in his timing and his plan. When you hold on to God, even through the toughest times, you will see his restoration in your life, just like Job did. The key to trusting God's plan, even when things seem impossible, is faith. Job never wavered in his trust in God, even when it seemed like his world was falling apart. And in the end, God rewarded his faithfulness. The same will happen for you. Keep praying, keep trusting, and keep believing that God's plan for your life is always bigger than your circumstances. He sees your pain, he has a greater plan, and he will restore everything you've lost in his perfect timing. It's often hard to see it in the moment, but every struggle and loss you face is part of the process of strengthening you for God's purpose. We tend to focus on the difficulty, the pain, and the uncertainty. But in reality, these challenges are the very things that shape and mold us. Just like a muscle gets stronger when it's stretched and worked, so does your spirit grow stronger through the trials. The Bible assures us that difficulties are not random or meaningless. They're working for your good. Every trial you face is preparing you for something greater, something you might not even be able to imagine right now. And as long as you continue to love and trust God, everything will work together for your benefit. Think of the refining process of gold. When gold is first mined, it's rough and impure. It's only through intense heat that the impurities are burned away, leaving behind pure gold. Similarly, the struggles and losses in your life are like that refining fire. They're not pleasant, but they serve a purpose. They burn away the things that aren't aligned with God's plan for you and make room for the divine purpose He's prepared. The Bible teaches us that those who love God are promised that all things will work together for good. This includes the challenges, the losses, and the struggles. They're part of the refining process, and in the end, they make you stronger and more aligned with God's will. When you're going through struggles, it's easy to feel defeated. But keep this in mind. God is using these moments to prepare you for the next step in your journey. Just like athletes train their bodies through pain and endurance, God is training your spirit through these difficult times. He's strengthening you, teaching you perseverance, and building your character. And all of this is done with His greater purpose in mind. The hardships you face today will not last forever, but the strength they give you will carry you through the next season of your life. The Bible encourages us to press on, to keep going even when it's tough, knowing that God is with us in every step. What's amazing about God's purpose is that He doesn't waste anything. No struggle, no loss, no difficulty is ever in vain. Every challenge is used to sharpen you, to teach you, and to guide you toward the plans He has for you. And the beautiful thing is, when you love God and trust His process, you can rest in the assurance that He's working everything out for your good. So, the next time you face a setback, instead of seeing it as a burden, consider it a blessing in disguise. It's an opportunity for growth, for strengthening, and for deeper trust in God's plan. God doesn't promise that the journey will be easy, but He does promise that it will be worth it. Your struggles and losses are not the end of the story. They're just part of the preparation for the victory that lies ahead. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to deepen your relationship with God and strengthen your faith. It's through these struggles that you learn to rely more on Him, trust in His provision, and grow into the person He created you to be. When you look at your struggles through this lens, they take on a new meaning. Instead of being obstacles, they become stepping stones toward fulfilling your purpose. It might not be easy to see in the midst of hardship, but take comfort in knowing that God is working in your life, even when things aren't going as planned. The difficulties are not there to break you, they're there to build you. They're shaping you into a stronger, more resilient person, ready for the next chapter of God's plan for your life. And in the end, when you look back, you'll see that those struggles were an integral part of your journey, leading you to a place of greater purpose and fulfillment. When we talk about God's restoration, it's important to understand that His restoration is not just about replacing what you've lost. It's not simply about getting back what was taken from you. No, God's restoration is abundant. It goes beyond mere replacement. When God restores something in your life, He doesn't just bring back what was lost. He gives you more peace, more joy, more opportunities, and a deeper connection with Him. Restoration, in God's eyes, is a renewal that transforms you, fills your life with His presence, and opens doors to blessings you never imagined. It's about living in abundance, a life full of the things that truly matter. Think about Job's life again. After everything he lost, his family, his wealth, his health, God didn't just restore him to where he was before. He gave Job twice as much as he had before. He restored Job's health, his relationships, and his fortune. But He also brought Job an inner peace and joy that couldn't be shaken. Job's restoration wasn't just about physical things, it was about a deeper, more abundant life. And this is what God offers you. Not just the return of what was lost, but an overflow of His goodness, grace, and blessings in every area of your life. His restoration is always more than enough. In our human understanding, we often associate restoration with returning things to their original state. But God's idea of restoration is about making you even better than before. It's about giving you opportunities that you never had, opening doors that were once closed, and creating new possibilities that fill your life with abundance. When God restores, It's not just about filling the gaps, it's about overflowing your life with blessings that can't be contained. His restoration brings a peace that surpasses understanding, a joy that fills your soul, and opportunities that align with His perfect will for your life. God's restoration isn't limited to material things. It's about restoring your relationships, your health, your spirit, and your purpose. For many, restoration begins in the heart. God heals the brokenness, the pain, the disappointment, and brings a deep sense of peace. And from that place of healing, the rest of your life is restored as well. You might experience new opportunities in your career, new relationships, and new ways of serving God and others. The abundance that God brings into your life will not only fulfill you, but will allow you to bless others in ways you couldn't have before. His restoration is holistic, affecting every part of your being. When you're facing a loss or struggle, it can be hard to believe that anything good can come from it. But remember that God's restoration is abundant. He has the ability to take your losses and turn them into something greater. Whatever you've lost, whether it's a relationship, a dream, or a material possession, God is capable of restoring it, and not just in the way you expect. He can bring something even better into your life. His plan is always for your good, and His restoration is always for your benefit. You don't have to settle for less than what God has promised you. His restoration brings abundance in ways that surpass what you might have thought was possible. As you wait for God's restoration, hold on to the promise of abundance. Trust that God is working on your behalf, and that His plan is always greater than your circumstances. His restoration will not only bring back what you lost, but will open up new doors of opportunity and new levels of peace, joy, and fulfillment. It's a reminder that God's blessings are always more than enough, far beyond what we could ask for or even imagine. His restoration is not just a return, it's a transformation, making you whole and giving you more than you had before. In the midst of struggles, it often feels like the enemy is working overtime to trap you, to set you up for failure. But here's a powerful truth. What the enemy intends for evil, God can and will turn into something good. He has a way of taking the very traps the enemy sets for you and turning them into stepping stones that lead you to victory. Take Joseph's story, for example. His brothers threw him into a pit, sold him into slavery, and he ended up in prison. It seemed like his life was on a downward spiral. But what appeared to be a trap was actually God's plan unfolding. Through those trials, Joseph was elevated to a position of power and influence in Egypt, and his story became a testimony of God's sovereignty and power. The traps the enemy set were merely a setup for God's glorious plan. David's story is another perfect example of how God turns the enemy's traps into stepping stones for victory. King Saul, driven by jealousy and fear, pursued David relentlessly, trying to destroy him. But every time Saul set a trap, David found a way to escape and move closer to the throne that God had already promised him. What Saul meant for harm, God used for good. David's experience shows us that God's plans cannot be thwarted. No matter how many enemies try to block your path, God's will for your life is unstoppable, and He will use every challenge, every trap, to bring you closer to His purpose. It's easy to feel like you're stuck when you're in the middle of a trap, whether it's in a relationship, a job, or even a spiritual battle. But remember, God has the power to take any situation, no matter how dire, and turn it into something that works for your good. The enemy may be clever in setting traps, but God is far wiser and far more powerful. He knows how to take what was meant to break you and turn it into the very thing that propels you to victory. So, when you feel trapped, instead of seeing it as the end, recognize that it could be the beginning of something greater, a part of God's divine plan. You might wonder how this works in your own life. Perhaps you faced betrayal, disappointment, or obstacles that seem insurmountable. But look at those moments through the lens of faith. See them as opportunities for God to work in ways that only He can. Just as He used Joseph's suffering to save nations and David's struggles to make him king, He will use your challenges to advance His kingdom and bring glory to His name. Every setback is a setup for a greater comeback. No matter what the enemy tries, God's plan will always prevail. The beauty of God's plan is that no matter how many traps are set, He always has a way out. It's a reminder that your victory is assured, not because of your strength, but because of God's power working in your life. The enemy might try to trap you, but God has already prepared a way for you to escape. He will always provide a path forward, even when the way seems impossible. Trust that God is guiding you, and His plan is unfolding step by step, leading you toward the victory He's already promised. It's important to remember that God's timing is perfect. The traps that seem to delay you or keep you in a holding pattern are actually part of the divine process. Just as Joseph and David were prepared through their struggles, so too will you be prepared for the next chapter of your life. Don't lose hope in the process. God is using it to make you stronger, wiser, and more equipped to walk into the victory He's destined for you. The traps the enemy sets may seem threatening, but they are nothing compared to the power of God working in your life. God's exaltation in your life is something that cannot be hidden. When He lifts you up, it's not just for your benefit. It's so that others can see His glory and be blessed by it. Think about the times when you've witnessed someone who has been elevated or blessed in a significant way. There's a ripple effect. God raises you so that you can be a beacon of His goodness and grace to those around you. Your story of restoration, your victories, your peace, these are all testimonies of God's love and power. As He exalts you, He uses your life as an example to others of what He can do when we trust and obey Him. Humility is key when God exalts you. It's easy to become prideful or take credit for the blessings you've received. But remember, everything you have, everything you've achieved, is a result of God's favor and grace. When God raises you up, it's not for you to boast or become arrogant. It's for you to serve others and be a reflection of His love. Jesus Himself, in all His glory, served others with humility. If you want to truly live out God's plan, it's important to remain humble and use your blessings to bless others. The higher God raises you, the more your influence can be used to lead others to Him. Your exaltation doesn't just benefit you, benefits the people around you. When God blesses you with abundance, opportunities, or influence, He's giving you the tools to bless those around you. This could mean serving others, sharing your testimony, or helping someone who is struggling. When you're elevated, it's a chance for you to be a blessing to those who need it most. Your success is not just for your own enjoyment, it's a vehicle for you to bring others closer to God. Remember, the more God exalts you, the more responsibility you have to use your position to bless others in His name. With every blessing that comes your way, it's important to remember to remain grateful. Gratitude is a powerful tool in God's kingdom. When you remain thankful for everything He has done and is doing in your life, you open the door for more blessings. God loves a grateful heart, and when you recognize that everything you have comes from Him, it keeps you grounded. No matter how high you rise or how blessed you become, maintaining a heart of gratitude ensures that you never forget who you are and where your blessings come from. Gratitude helps keep you humble, focused, and aligned with God's purpose for your life. God's exaltation in your life is a beautiful thing, but it's also a responsibility. The more God blesses you, the more you're called to bless others. He doesn't just raise you up for your own benefit. He raises you up so that others can experience His goodness through you. Your life becomes a living testimony of God's love, mercy, and grace. And as you remain humble and grateful, you continue to honor God by using your blessings to bless others. That's the true essence of living a life that reflects God's glory, a life where your exaltation becomes an opportunity for others to see God at work. When God exalts you, remember that it's not just about you, it's about the people you can touch, inspire, and uplift along the way. Whether it's through your words, your actions, or simply your presence, you have the power to impact the lives of others in a profound way. And through it all, maintain humility and gratitude. It's in these qualities that God's exaltation is most clearly seen. When you stay humble and thankful, you become a vessel through which God's blessings flow, and you help others experience His love and grace in ways they never expected. It's time to take everything you've learned and put it into action. God's restoration is not a passive promise, it's something you need to actively embrace and believe in. What areas of your life do you need to start trusting God for restoration? Maybe it's your finances, your relationships, or your purpose. The key is to trust that God is working in the background, even when you can't see it. The world may have rejected you, but God's plans for you have only just begun. So, ask yourself, what steps can you take today to align yourself with God's plan? How can you maintain humility, gratitude, and faith as you wait for His restoration to unfold in your life? Remember, your journey doesn't end in rejection. In fact, it's just the beginning of a powerful comeback. Keep moving forward, stay faithful, and watch as God turns everything around for your good. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you never miss out on the guidance and inspiration you need to keep growing. Together, we'll explore more of God's powerful promises and how they can transform your life. Are you ready for your restoration?